All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be tackling something that, it kind of sounds a little crazy at first. We're going to be talking about building an Olympic body without using any weights. Yeah, you heard me right. No weights, just using your own body weight. I mean, when most people think about those incredibly strong athletes, they immediately picture weight rooms stacked with barbells and plates, right?
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of ingrained in us, isn't it? Like big muscles equal heavy weights. But that's actually not always the case, and that's what we're going to be exploring today.
Exactly. And the inspiration for this deep dive is an article called Building an Olympic Body Through Bodyweight Conditioning. This article was written by Christopher Sommer, and let me tell you, this guy knows his stuff. Coach Sommer has been coaching gymnasts, including many champions, for over 25 years.
Wow, 25 years. That's a seriously long time dedicated to the sport. He must have seen it all.
Oh yeah, he's definitely a veteran in the field. And he currently serves as the men's head coach at the Desert Devil Gymnastics National Team Training Center, which is one of the top gymnastics programs in the Southwest. It's safe to say he knows what he's talking about.
Absolutely. So what exactly does he cover in this article?
Well, in this article, he focuses on two basic gymnastics movements, the planche and the front lever. The planche is considered a pressing movement, while the front lever is a pulling movement. He breaks down how to start learning these movements, even if you're a complete beginner.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. But I gotta admit, when I hear Olympic level moves, I think of, superhuman athletes. What does this have to do with the average person who's just trying to get in shape? I mean, can these techniques really benefit someone like me who's not training for the Olympics and probably doesn't have access to a professional gymnastics coach?
That's a great question, and that's exactly what we're going to be digging into today. We want to understand the fundamental principles behind how gymnasts use their own body weight to build incredible strength. We'll also break down those crucial first steps in learning the planche and front lever. And, most importantly, we'll explore if this type of training can help you build serious strength without relying on those traditional weightlifting methods. The heavy dumbbells and barbells.
Sounds like a fascinating deep dive. I'm excited to see what we uncover.
Me too. Okay, let's jump right in. One of the first things Summer tackles is this common belief that bodyweight exercises are primarily for building endurance, not real strength. Like when you think of push-ups, sit-ups, maybe even pull-ups, sure, they're good for general fitness, but can they really help you pack on muscle and boost your strength?
Yeah, that's what most people assume, right? Like body weight exercises are good for a warm-up or maybe some light cardio, but to build real muscle, you got to lift heavy weights.
Right, but that's where Summer challenges the conventional wisdom. He reminds us that at its core, strength development happens when your muscles contract against resistance. And to keep getting stronger, that resistance needs to increase progressively. So when it comes to bodyweight exercises, a lot of people hit a plateau because they think, well, my weight is my weight. I can't magically make myself heavier.
Yeah, I see the problem. You can't just add more weight to your body like you would add plates to a barbell. So how do you increase the resistance with just your body weight?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Summer says you can actually increase the resistance in bodyweight exercises, and you don't need to gain a single pound to do it.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. How do you do that?
The secret lies in leverage, or more accurately, reducing leverage. By strategically changing the position of your body, you can make an exercise significantly harder, even though your weight remains the same.
Oh, I think I get it. It's kind of like if you're doing a leg raise, lifting your leg straight up is much harder than lifting it with your knee bent.
Right. Exactly. The weight of your leg hasn't changed, but straightening it creates much less leverage, making the movement way more challenging for your muscles.
That's actually a really cool concept. So instead of focusing on adding more external weight, you're manipulating your own body to create that increased resistance.
Precisely. Summer argues that with a bit of creativity and by following a structured progression, you can position your body in ways that create such a disadvantage in leverage that your own body weight becomes incredibly challenging to work against.
So even though you're not adding weight in the traditional sense, you're essentially making your body feel heavier by making the exercises more difficult.
Exactly. And it's not just about raw strength gains either. Summer also highlights the incredible benefits that come with this type of training for your balance, coordination, agility, and core strength. He even mentions how performers like Jackie Chan and Mark Dacascos, who incorporate gymnastics training into their routines, display that insane level of body control.
Makes sense. When you watch those guys move, it's like they have complete mastery over every part of their body. Their strength is obviously impressive, but it's the control and precision that really stand out.
Totally. It really emphasizes that true functional strength isn't just about how much weight you can lift. It's about how well you can control and move your own body through space. And that's what gymnastics training truly emphasizes.
Okay, so the theory sounds pretty convincing, but what about real-world results? Does this type of training actually translate into tangible strength gains?
Great question. Well, Sommer shares a pretty compelling anecdote about a guy named Mr. Mas Watanabe, who's a legend in U.S. men's gymnastics. This guy has been involved in the sport for over 30 years, so he's seen countless elite gymnasts.
Wow, 30 years. He must be a walking encyclopedia of gymnastics knowledge. So what did he think about this bodyweight training approach?
Well, when he observed Sommer's athletes going through their bodyweight conditioning routines, he was absolutely stunned. He was so impressed by their strength and physical development that he called them the strongest and most physically prepared group of athletes he had ever seen in his entire career. And get this, all of that was achieved almost exclusively through bodyweight training, no heavy weights involved.
That's a pretty powerful endorsement, especially coming from someone with his level of experience and expertise.
Right. And Sommer takes it even further. He claims that when done correctly, bodyweight training can actually lead to greater strength gains than spending the same amount of time training with free weights. Now, that might sound a bit hard to believe, but he provides some pretty amazing examples to back up his claim.
Okay, I'm all ears. What kind of examples are we talking about?
Well, there's a story about one of his former students, J.J. Gregory. On his very first day of high school weightlifting, at just 135 pounds and 5'3" tall, he deadlifted a whopping 400 pounds.
Hold on, 400 pounds. That's almost 3 times his body weight. And this was his first time ever deadlifting. That's incredible.
I know, right? It's almost hard to believe.
Ah,
And Sommer attributes JJ's incredible strength to his foundation in bodyweight conditioning. He basically says that mastering your own body weight lays down an incredibly strong foundation for building overall strength.
it seems counterintuitive, but the results speak for themselves. It challenges the whole idea of needing to start with lighter external weights and gradually increase the load.
It really does. And then there's this other crazy story about testing JJ's weighted pull-ups. They started light, but the cheap belt they were using actually snapped at 75 pounds. And this was JJ's first time ever attempting a weighted pull-up.
Wow. So not only was he deadlifting nearly 3 times his body weight, but he was also casually pulling 75 pounds over his head without any prior experience with weighted pull-up.
Exactly. Sommer said JJ just laughed it off, totally unfazed by the weight. It makes you wonder just how much weight he could have actually pulled up that day if the belt hadn't broken.
That's some serious strength, especially for someone who hadn't specifically trained for weighted pull-ups.
Right. It speaks volumes about the type of strength and resilience that can be built through this type of training.
So it's not just anecdotes, right? Are there other examples of these incredible strength gains?
Oh, absolutely. He also mentions his own son, who at 13 years old and around 110 pounds could crank out 8 chin-ups with an additional 50 pounds hanging from them. And he says that younger athletes in his program routinely do sets of chin-ups with an extra 25 pounds without breaking a sweat.
Wow. It seems like these aren't just isolated cases. It's a consistent pattern of impressive strength gains.
It definitely seems that way. And here's another interesting point Sommer makes. He emphasizes that the impressive physiques you see on his athletes are a byproduct of their training, not the goal. They're not trying to get buff just for the looks. Their muscle development comes from training for function and performance in gymnastics.
That's a great point. It highlights the effectiveness of training for functional strength and athleticism rather than purely for aesthetics.
Exactly. Okay, so we've seen some pretty incredible results, both in terms of raw strength and physique. Now let's dive into the why behind this approach. What makes bodyweight conditioning so effective at building strength?
Yeah, I'm really curious to understand the underlying principles that make this type of training so potent.
Well, one of the key concepts Sommer emphasizes is the principle of maximum contraction. He explains that the most advanced bodyweight movements require a full-body, intense contraction of your muscles. It's not just about isolating one muscle group, it's about engaging your entire body to maintain stability and control.
So it's not just about leaving weight, it's about maximizing the intensity of the muscular contractions. That makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. He also highlights that you don't necessarily need to train to failure on every single rep, but striving for that maximum contraction is a key driver of strength development.
That's a good point. It shifts the focus from just completing reps to really feeling the muscles working and maximizing their engagement.
Right. And then he talks about the benefits of static holds, particularly when performed in those mechanically disadvantageous positions we talked about earlier. Holding your body weight in a challenging position essentially multiplies the resistance, making it incredibly effective for building strength.
Ah, so those static holds aren't just about improving endurance or balance. They're also a powerful tool for building strength.
Precisely. He even draws a comparison to those old school strongmen who used to hold incredibly heavy weights in a static position for extended periods. Guys like Paul Anderson and John Grimmick, legendary strongmen who were known for their incredible feats of strength, incorporated static holds into their training.
Wow, that's really interesting. So holding your body weight in a challenging position is similar to holding a heavy weight in a fixed position. It forces your muscles to work hard and builds a different type of strength.
Exactly. And Summer argues that this isometric strength, the strength built through holding a position rather than moving a weight, can be incredibly valuable and is often underutilized in conventional weight training.
So by incorporating those static holds, you're not just working on your dynamic strength, but also strengthening your joints and connective tissues.
That's right. And that's crucial for long-term athletic development and injury prevention.
Okay, this all sounds fantastic, but I have to admit, it also sounds incredibly challenging.
Oh, it definitely is. Summer makes it clear that this approach is not a quick fix. He emphasizes that achieving success with this type of training requires consistent, incremental improvements over time. It's not about chasing those rapid gains or getting discouraged if progress isn't immediate.
It's that age-old adage, slow and steady wins the race. In a world of instant gratification, it's important to remember that true strength and skill development take time and dedicated effort.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Summer uses a really great analogy. He compares it to planting a seed. You can't rush the process of growth. You nurture it, provide it with the right conditions, and patiently wait for it to flourish.
I love that analogy. It's a perfect reminder that achieving meaningful results in fitness, just like in nature, requires consistency and patience.
Absolutely. He also makes an important distinction between neurological efficiency, that initial feeling of improvement as you become more skilled at a movement, and actual physiological strength gains.
You mean how you can feel like you're getting better at an exercise even though your muscles haven't actually gotten stronger yet?
Precisely. That early progress is often just your nervous system becoming more efficient at executing the movement pattern. It's like greasing the groove, making the movement smoother and more coordinated. But it takes time for the actual muscle fibers to adapt and grow stronger.
So how long does it typically take to see those real strength gains?
Well, Summer says it generally takes around 6 weeks to see those tangible increases in strength, assuming you're training consistently and progressively challenging yourself. His advice is to make haste slowly. I really like that philosophy.
It's a great reminder that sustainable progress comes from balancing ambition with patience.
Absolutely. And speaking of timelines, he mentions that it typically takes at least 6 months of consistent work to progress through the various exercises he outlines in the article.
That's a significant time commitment, but it makes sense when you consider the complexity and challenge of these movements.
Yeah, just like you wouldn't expect to bench press 300 pounds after just a few weeks of training, mastering these advanced bodyweight movements requires a similar level of dedication and consistent effort over time.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Couldn't have put it better myself. All right, so we've got a solid understanding of the underlying principles. Now, let's get to the practical part. The introduction to the planche and front lever progressions.
I'm ready. Let's break it down.
Okay, so Summer clearly states that what he provides in the article is just a starting point, not a complete training program. He focuses on these two specific exercises, the planche and the front lever. Because they're novel, they involve relatively simple starting movements, and they offer huge potential for building overall strength.
So even though they're challenging, the initial steps are manageable and the long-term payoff is significant.
Exactly. And he also highlights the advanced variations of these movements, the planche push-up and the front lever pull-up, as incredibly intense full-body exercises that work not only your upper body, but also your core and back muscles.
I can already imagine how challenging those advanced movements must be.
Oh yeah, they're definitely not for the faint of heart. But the key takeaway is that the journey to mastering these movements is all about progression. You need to be able to hold each position with perfect form for a combined total of 60 seconds, even if you need to break it down into multiple sets.
Okay, so 60 seconds of total hold time is the benchmark before moving on to the next, more challenging variation. That's a specific and measurable goal.
Right. Once you can hold it correctly for a full 60 seconds in a single set, then you're ready to progress to the next level. And he mentions that these static holds can be practiced either daily or integrated into your regular workout routine.
That's good to know. It offers flexibility in terms of how you incorporate these exercises into your training.
Exactly. And here's another interesting point. He recommends working on both the planche and front lever progressions simultaneously.
Why is that?
Well, the planche is primarily a pressing movement that works the front of your body, while the front lever is a pulling movement that targets your back. By training them together, you can create a more balanced development and potentially accelerate your progress.
Ah, that makes sense. You're essentially working both sides of your body in a complementary way.
Exactly. He also shares a couple of general tips that apply to both progressions. The first is to always maintain straight elbows. Bending your elbows significantly reduces the intensity and slows down your progress. As he puts it, almost straight is still bent, so you need to be strict about that.
So keeping those elbows locked out is crucial for maximizing the challenge and targeting the right muscles.
Got it. And specifically for the planche exercises, he says hand position is totally up to personal preference. Whether you like your fingers pointing forward or sideways, using a flat hand or your fingertips, or even using push-up bars, experiment and find what feels most comfortable and stable for you.
That's great advice. Finding a comfortable and secure hand position can make a big difference, especially as you progress to the more challenging variations.
Absolutely. Okay, let's break down the planche progressions step by step. The first step is the frog stand. You start in a full squat position, place your hands flat on the ground right next to your toes, and rest your knees against your bent elbows.
So far, so good. I can picture that starting position.
Good. From there, you lean forward, shifting your weight onto your hands and your knees resting on your elbows. As you get comfortable with the balance, you eventually lift your feet off the ground, supporting your weight entirely on your hands with your knees acting as supports on your elbows. It's like being a frog perched on your hands.
I see the resemblance. It sounds like a good way to get accustomed to supporting your weight with your arms.
Exactly. He emphasizes that bent elbows are okay in this specific exercise because it helps you get comfortable with the balance and build some initial shoulder strength. The goal here is to accumulate a total of 60 seconds of hold time, broken down into as many sets as you need.
60 seconds, multiple sets. Got it. So what's the next step in the progression?
The next step is the tuck planche. The key difference here is that now your weight is fully supported by your arms, no more assistance from your knees. You start in the same full squat position, hands by your toes, and then lean forward, pulling your knees tightly to your chest as you lift your feet off the ground.
So you're essentially holding yourself in a tucked position, balancing entirely on your hands.
Precisely. And Sommer acknowledges that at first you might only manage a brief lift off the ground. The aim is to practice consistently until you can hold that tucked position with your hips roughly at shoulder height for a total of 60 seconds.
60 seconds, here we go again. It sounds like a real test of core and shoulder strength.
It definitely is. Then we progress to the advanced tuck planche. Now the main change here is in the position of your back. In the regular tuck planche, your back naturally rounds a bit, but in the advanced tuck, you actively flatten your back while maintaining that same hip height.
Ah, so it's a subtle change in form, but it likely makes a big difference in the difficulty.
Oh, it absolutely does. Sommer says that this seemingly small adjustment drastically increases the intensity of the hold. The goal here is to build up to a solid 60-second hold in a single set with a perfectly flat back.
I can imagine that flattening your back while holding yourself up like that engages your entire posterior chain much more intensely.
You got it. Now, once you've mastered the advanced tuck planche, it's time to move on to the straddle planche. This is where it starts to resemble the iconic planche we often see in gymnastics.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
From the advanced tuck planche position, you slowly extend your knees out to the sides behind you, forming a straddle with your legs.
So you're basically going from a tucked position to a more extended, straddled position, still holding yourself up horizontally.
Exactly. And balance becomes even more crucial here. As your legs extend further, you'll need to lean slightly forward to maintain that balance. Wider leg straddles are easier to start with, and you can gradually bring your legs closer together as you get stronger.
So the wider the straddle, the easier it is, and you progressively make it harder by bringing your legs closer. Makes sense.
Right. And Sommer emphasizes making small, gradual adjustments in hold time or leg extension. He says that even being able to hold a proper straddle planche for just 10 seconds is enough to progress to the next stage.
Wow, just 10 seconds. It really highlights how much more challenging this variation is.
It really does. Now, once you've built a solid foundation with the static holds, you can start incorporating dynamic movements. And the first one is the tuck planche push-up.
Okay, so now we're moving from static holds to actually moving through a range of motion.
Exactly. The tuck planche push-up is essentially performing a push-up while maintaining that advanced tuck planche position. The key is to keep your hips level with your shoulders throughout the entire movement and fully straighten your elbows at the top of each push-up.
So it's like combining the strength and stability of the advanced tuck planche with the dynamic movement of a push-up.
Precisely. The number of reps and sets you do is up to you, depending on your strength level. But the focus should always be on maintaining that perfect form throughout the entire exercise.
I bet those are brutal.
Oh, they definitely are. And finally, for the planche progressions, we have the straddle planche push-up. Now, Sommer calls this one a super bench press or a full body press. And for good reason, it works not only your chest, shoulders, and triceps, but also your lats, back muscles, traps, and of course, your core is working overtime to stabilize your entire body.
Wow, a full body press. So it's not just a chest exercise, it's engaging pretty much every muscle in your body.
Exactly. You start in the straddle planche position, lower yourself down while keeping your hips level, pause briefly just above the ground, and then push back up to the starting position.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah.
I can imagine the amount of core strength required to keep your body straight and controlled throughout that movement.
It's definitely a challenge. He acknowledges that this is super tough, especially when you're first starting out, and suggests using variations similar to kettlebell military press training. Things like partial reps, slow negatives, and small up and down pulses can help you build up the necessary strength and control.
Those variations sound like a good way to gradually build up to the full straddle planche push-up.
Absolutely. All right, now let's switch gears and look at the pulling movements with the front lever progressions.
Sounds good. I'm ready to tackle those pulling exercises.
Okay, so just like with the planche, Sommer emphasizes the importance of maintaining straight elbows throughout the entire front lever progression. And for these exercises, you'll be using a shoulder-width overhand grip on a bar with your fingers pointing away from you.
Straight elbows and overhand grip. Got it. So where do we start?
The first step in the front lever progression is the tuck front lever. You begin by hanging from the bar with that overhand grip. Then you bring your knees up towards your chest and try to lift your hips up while leaning back slightly with your shoulders. Initially, it's okay if your back is slightly rounded as you build strength.
Okay, so it's like a tucked position, but instead of being on your hands, you're hanging from a bar.
Exactly. And the eventual goal is to pull your hips up until they're level with your shoulders, forming roughly a 45-degree angle between your arms and your torso.
That sounds challenging. It's like a horizontal plank, but hanging from a bar.
It is. And Sommer points out that this is a tough one for beginners. He recommends starting by simply lifting your hips as high as you can, accumulating a total of 60 seconds of hold time, even if it takes several attempts. Once you can comfortably hold that horizontal tuck position for a full 60 seconds in one go, you can move on to the next stage.
60 seconds, multiple sets. That seems to be a recurring theme.
It's a good way to break down a challenging goal into manageable chunks.
It really is. The next step in the progression is the advanced tuck front lever. Similar to the advanced tuck planche, the main difference here is achieving a flat back. You're still aiming for that same horizontal hip position and arm angle as the regular tuck front lever, but now you actively flatten your back, which intensifies the contraction in your back muscles.
So it's a subtle tweak in form, but I bet it makes a world of difference in terms of difficulty.
Oh, it absolutely does. Sommer gives a helpful cue to visualize this. Imagine actively pulling your shoulders back and pressing your hands down towards your hips while keeping your hips high and your elbows locked straight. Again, the target is to build up to a solid 60-second hold with a perfectly flat back.
Flat back, shoulders pulled back, hands pressing down. I'm trying to picture it in my head. It definitely sounds like it targets those back muscles much more intensely. It definitely does. Next up is the straddle front lever. You transition into this from the advanced tuck front lever by carefully extending your legs out to the sides, maintaining that flat back throughout the movement. Keeping your legs wider will make it easier at first, and you can gradually bring them closer together as you get stronger.
So similar to the straddle planche, wider legs make it easier, and as you get stronger, you can increase the challenge by bringing your legs closer together.
Got it.
Exactly. And while you're working on the straddle front lever hold, you can start practicing the tuck front lever pull-up.
Now we're getting to the dynamic movements, the real strength builders.
Right. The tuck front lever pull-up is essentially performing a horizontal pull-up from the advanced tuck front lever position. The key is to maintain that perfectly horizontal body line throughout the entire movement, which is incredibly challenging.
I can imagine. You're pulling your entire body weight up while staying perfectly horizontal. It's a whole different level of strength and control. Absolutely. And then the final and most challenging exercise in the front lever progression is the straddle front lever pull-up. Someone calls this one a full body weight row, and for good reason. He advises mastering both the straddle front lever hold and the tuck front lever pull-up before attempting this beast.
A full body weight row. That sounds intense.
Yeah.
What exactly does it work?
This exercise targets your entire back, from your upper traps all the way down to your lower back, along with your biceps, forearms, shoulders, and of course your core.
Wow, it's a true full body pulling movement.
It really is. You start in the straddle front lever position and pull your upper stomach towards the bar while maintaining that flat back and keeping your legs from dropping down. It's essential to avoid letting your hips sag, as that would essentially turn it into a regular pull-up, defeating the purpose.
So the key is to maintain that strict horizontal line throughout the entire movement.
Precisely. And just like with the straddle planche push-ups, Sommer suggests incorporating training variations like partial reps, slow negatives, and small pulses to help you gradually build up to the full straddle front lever pull-up.
Makes sense. It's a great way to make those incredibly challenging exercises more accessible while still working towards the ultimate goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's a breakdown of the planche and front lever progressions. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap the key takeaways from Christopher Sommer's article.
Sounds good. It's done a lot of information, but I'm ready to summarize and see what we can apply to our own training.
All right, so the main takeaway is that building an Olympic-level physique and strength is possible primarily through body weight training.
It really challenges the idea that heavy weights are the only way to achieve those kinds of results.
It does. And the key is to understand and apply the principles of leverage and progressive overload, just like you would with traditional weight training. By strategically manipulating your body position and gradually increasing the difficulty of the exercises, you can achieve remarkable strength gains.
It's fascinating how simply changing the position of your body can dramatically increase the difficulty of an exercise, effectively multiplying the resistance without needing to add any external weight.
Exactly. And another crucial point Sommer emphasizes is the importance of patience and consistency.
Absolutely. Mastering these advanced bodyweight movements takes time, dedication, and a willingness to embrace those small, incremental improvements.
It's about focusing on the process, not getting discouraged by setbacks, and enjoying the journey of becoming stronger and more skilled.
And as Sommer so eloquently puts it, the ultimate reward is extreme strength, a great build, and a lot of fun, all done in minutes per day. What more could one ask for from a workout?
Couldn't have said it better myself. Now, for everyone listening, we encourage you to reflect on this deep dive. Could incorporating these bodyweight training principles unlock a new level of strength and body control for you, even without access to a fully equipped gym? Take a moment to consider which of those initial progressions, whether it's the frog stand, the tuck front lever, or something else entirely, might be a good starting point for your own fitness journey.
And if you're intrigued by what you've heard today, we highly recommend diving deeper into the fascinating world of bodyweight training and exploring the countless resources available on gymnastic strength training. There's a wealth of information out there that can further enhance your understanding and inspire you to explore new possibilities in your fitness journey.
Fantastic. Well, that's it for this episode of The Deep Dive. Thanks for joining us on this exploration of bodyweight strength training. We'll catch you next time.